All right, joining us today on Pirate Radio Live from the North Carolina Sports Network, he is David Glenn, DG. Always great to catch up with you, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Clip. Always good to be with you.
We got a big one in Raleigh going on, ECU, NC State in baseball today. And there, in years past, maybe we've seen a number beside these teams' names. That is not the case this year. They're having somewhat similar years. East Carolina, a much better conference record, and I'm going to say the ACC is probably much better than the American. And let me ask you that first, David. How many ACC teams, as of right now, do you think are playing postseason baseball?
Well, it's a big number. I mean, North Carolina and Georgia Tech and Florida State and Boston College and maybe a couple of others have just locked themselves into a great season so far. NC State is not exactly in that category. And what's crazy about today's matchup is if you and I were talking about Pirates versus Wolfpack 2 weeks ago, it kind of felt like the Pirates were sliding. It felt like the Wolfpack was in a really good place. And I think we flipped that script because right now, ECU is an NCAA tournament team for sure, maybe even a 2 seed if the Pirates keep playing well. And NC State is messing with bubble territory right now. So we all know both of these teams are much better at home than on the road. The Wolfpack got the Pirates the first time. I don't think this is going to be a pitcher's duel in Raleigh. So, but the ACC is very good in baseball. The American is good in baseball, and the Pirates are clearly, if not the best team, one of the top two.
Yeah, Pat got him the first time around. David, you're right. Pirates have been playing well on a four-game win streak. One sign of at least a pretty good team, David, is taking care of business against lesser opponents. And man, the Pirates have crushed inferior opponents this year. When they've taken a step up, they did beat North Carolina. Hell,
Yeah.
the tie against North Carolina looks pretty good right now, the way the Tar Heels are playing. They did beat Coastal in one game, so they've had some opportunities, won some, lost some, but just the fact that you could go on the road and beat an ACC team tonight, I think a very important game for ECU while they try to continue to take care of business in conference play.
Yeah, I think it says a lot, and maybe a casual college baseball fan would not even realize this, but a really good team like ECU has a losing record on the road this year overall. A solid team like NC State, which is really good at home, has a losing record on the road. So that home field advantage is real in every sport that we follow. It seems pretty powerful for these two baseball teams in particular that are going head to head today. Um, but it's not like either of these teams is head and shoulders above the other. If we had predicted back in the preseason, would they split two games? That maybe that's what we would have predicted. It might not be the win in the location that we would have predicted when things got started, but I can tell you, NC State's running out of pitching, as a lot of teams do at this time of the year after injuries and other problems. So if ECU is going to get a victory over the Wolfpack, it's going to have to be with the bats putting a big number on the board.
Zach, can you find me a line somewhere before I get out of here with DG? We'll see what the Vegas says about tonight's game. David Glenn joining us, NC Sports Network. Speaking of Zach, we were talking before we got you on, David, and I said, Zach, who are the Tar Heels and Wolfpack and Deacons and Blue Devils that got drafted this year? Who are the big names? And he said, well, zero for North Carolina. And we were struggling to come up with anybody else, David. As far as in-state goes, Anthony Smith, the Pirate receiver, was drafted from ECU in the seventh round by the Dallas Cowboys. But how about the in-state ACC schools? Very quiet when it came to the draft, right?
Yes, and quiet for our state overall. And I really think part of this is a byproduct of the transfer portal era and name, image, likeness. Because, for many, many years, there would be Division two players drafted from our state, FCS players drafted from our state. And then obviously the seven FBS schools would usually have someone picked. And what's happening is if a D2 or FCS or sometimes even ECU or App State or the Charlotte 49ers, if they have a really good player, they get scooped up by one of the power conference teams. And even at places like State or Wake, Duke and Carolina, sometimes their better players are scooped up and paid bigger money by those in power conferences. So it was not a banner year for the state of North Carolina. I mean, the ACC had a bunch of guys from Miami and Clemson and elsewhere, but in our state, man, it was a few guys from Duke. Wesley Williams went in the 4th round. Chandler Rivers is a D-back who went in the 5th round. Wake had a couple of guys. Damon Claiborne's a really good running back. Karan Prunty is a cornerback. NC State has a really good tight end in Justin Jolie. Brandon Cleveland was drafted from the defensive line from NC State, but that was in the 7th round. Jolie went in the 5th round. And as you said, the Tar Heels had nobody picked. We just posted actually at ncsportsnetwork.com a full list of undrafted free agents who got invitations from NFL teams. And that's a really, really long list, and it is every year. But in the 7-round draft itself, man, it was slim pickings for the great state of North Carolina overall this year.
Man, we'll see if that trend continues, or hopefully for the schools here, it was an anomaly. Zach, did you find a line for baseball? What do we got? No mic? Well, you can just tell me off the mic.
-1.5 to NC State.
All right.
14 total.
Do you have a money line for the sides?
-145.
NC State. So NC State -145, the favorite. 14.5 total, David. So you phrased it what? Will not be a pitcher's duel? I think you were right about that. So
yeah,
we'll
there's
see.
going to be some runs put on the board. Anyone who likes offense, I think, is going to be entertained. And I think that line is just a byproduct of home records versus road records. That's what it is. They can't be anything more than that because ECU's playing better baseball right now than NC State is.
David, man, been enjoying the Hurricanes hockey. We'll have to wait a little while because they swept the Ottawa Senators. And let me ask you this. You're more of a hockey guy than I am, but I'll put it this way. I've been on both sides of what I saw on Saturday as a fan. I've watched some bad Commanders football team, Redskins football over my life, and I remember late in the year we're getting our tails kicked by the Cowboys or Eagles, and then one of our guys just decides to fight. And at first I'm like, all right, if we can't beat them, let's win the fight. And after about 20 seconds, I'm like, you know what? This is stupid. What are we doing? And it felt kind of gross. I felt that way on the other side watching it Saturday, where the Canes are up 3-0 in the series. They never trailed the series, so they're up in the game, and there's just scrum after scrum after scrum, and it was entertaining for a little while, and then it was like, what are we doing, guys? So from somebody that's watched more hockey than me, is that just hockey, or was that a little over the top? How did you look at what happened Saturday?
It's a combination of that's just hockey, and yes, it was a little bit over the top because it is not at all uncommon for the team that is getting its butt kicked 4-0 in this case, especially when that team is on home ice in front of the fans that have been rooting for them since October. And they don't want the season to end, and they don't want it to end in embarrassing 0-4 fashion, and they don't want to have it end in front of the fans that are rooting for them. Under those circumstances, it's just it's highly combustible.
Yeah.
And the competitive fire comes out sometimes in the wrong ways. I will tell you it's not as bad as it was in the old days. Remember, I'm originally from Philadelphia. There was a series of teams called the Broad Street Bullies, the Philadelphia Flyers. They won a couple of Stanley Cups in a row. And this, I think, scarred me as a 7 and 8-year-old or whatever in the mid-'70s, because if the Flyers were about to lose a series in the playoffs on home ice, there was essentially a 100% chance that guys were just going to start gooning it up and dropping the gloves and attacking people for no reason. Sometimes there's individual revenge where you're out to get a certain player for something he did previously, but sometimes it's just sheer goonery. And I think Ottawa was a pretty extreme example of the sheer goonery when they were being eliminated by the Canes in 4 games. And with guys like Tkachuk and a few others, they're infamous for that kind of play, and that's why it didn't surprise me under those circumstances.
I should have known, asking a Philly guy, that you would have tolerated at least a little bit, because you grew up, you were raised on it. But well said, DG. And now, rest versus rust. Sometimes I think we just make that a sports radio talking point, and I don't know if it's a big deal for coaches and teams at all. I'll say this though, yeah, I like the rest coming off that series, David, for Carolina and trying to get back healthy. That they'll get almost a week off. I guess we don't know
Yeah.
when the next series will begin, but do you think in this particular case maybe rest is a good thing?
Yeah, I'd be fascinated myself as someone who knows Rod Brindamore, the Canes coach, really well. I'd be fascinated to hear his answer to your question.
Yeah,
My instinct is along your lines. Not only is hockey a physically bruising sport where you just like guys who feel 80% to maybe feel closer to 90 or 95% with that week off, but remember, one of the Canes' really talented young defensemen, Alexander Nikishin, was knocked out of that game with what was clearly a concussion. And concussions vary a lot, but one rule of thumb with concussions is you're going to need a week. And I can guarantee you the Carolina Hurricanes would rather play round 2 with Alexander Nikishin back from a concussion suffered in that final game against Ottawa. So in that specific sense, I think the week off would be just what the doctor ordered for the Carolina Hurricanes.
David Glenn joining us. DG, obviously you covered the Canes. Do you still have your passion for Philly? We could see them next series, right?
Yeah, and this is crazy, Clip. My friends that I grew up with and my hockey buddies here in North Carolina, it's hard to wrap our brains around this, but the Canes and the Flyers, even though they've been members of the same division forever, have never played in the postseason.
Wow.
So I've been getting the question from my childhood buddies, oh, man, if they ever play in the playoffs, you're not really going to root against the Flyers, are you? Well, I mean, I've been a North Carolinian for almost 40 years now, right? I mean, I consider Rod Brindamore a friend, and some of the guys, I even know the owner of the Canes. I'm a season ticket holder. So sometimes I'm in the press box, sometimes I'm down in my season tickets. I'm all Canes, just to be clear. Do I root for the Flyers against other teams? I do.
Right.
But I root for the Canes over the Flyers, and that is not a difficult call for me, again, after 40 years. But it's fascinating to me. It is mathematically highly improbable that you would go, I think, the Canes have been around for, 27 or 8 years here in North Carolina? I mean, that's a crazy statistical anomaly. Obviously, as long as the Flyers beat the Penguins in one of these next 2 games, that weird streak will come to an end. But I think the Canes are the better team than either the Flyers or the Penguins. But from a selfish point of view, I hope the Flyers and Penguins just keep beating each other up, so that they're dragging their tails by the time they get to the Canes, whoever wins.
Are there, off the top of your head, David, any other teams that's happened for the Canes in the East? The Red Wings we've played the Red Wings in the Stanley Cup. Have we played them in the Eastern Conference playoffs?
I mean, gosh, in our division, I've personally been to Capitals playoff series, Devils playoff series, Islanders playoff series, Rangers playoff series. Columbus, I can't remember off the top of my head, but Columbus has not been in our division as long as some of those other teams.
Yeah.
It's got to be an anomaly, man.
Yeah,
obviously,
that's crazy.
Yeah, when it comes to Western teams, you're only going to face them in the modern format if you make the Stanley Cup Finals.
Right.
So that's not unusual at all. But, man, I'll bet you if we went through the whole NHL, longtime divisional foes who haven't played each other ever, it's got to be a short list. And
Yeah.
for my personal reasons, of course, I just happen to know that the Flyers-Canes is on that short list.
That's crazy. DG, how about, can you give us a portal update? How's Duke, Carolina, NC State? There are a couple of those teams working with some new coaches and Wake. How's the portal going for the ACC schools in state?
Yeah, Duke did most of its damage in the high school recruiting ranks. John Shire, every single year since it took over for Coach K, signs one of the best high school classes. And they still matter. Transfers matter more nowadays overall, but Duke's one of the few that still builds largely through the high school All-American ranks. But Duke got a Wisconsin guy named John Blackwell, who was all Big Ten in that league. So he was one of the true plums of the transfer portal. Wake, I think, is trending in the wrong direction. They just have not stacked a very good portal class together. Justin Gainey, a new coach at NC State, has a lot of work still ahead. He has signed, I believe it's 6 guys from the portal. And nowadays, Clip, you really need 9 or 10 because almost nobody has more. Some schools have no returning players.
Yeah.
Others have 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. There's a few that have 5 or 6. But generally, you need 6 to 10 or more transfers. I think Florida State in the ACC has 11 transfers signed. Pitt has 10. So Justin Gainey has found his point guard, guy named Preston Edmead from Hofstra. He was all CAA. They found a big guy named Kyle Evans at Cal Irvine. He was all Big West. And they found a wing player named Christian Hammond from Santa Clara. He was all West Coast Conference. So they're kind of raiding the mid-major leagues, if you will, the Wolfpack. But they have a lot more work to do. And then Michael Malone at UNC, I mean, he plucked one of State's better young players. Yeah. Matt Abel is going. Remember last year, Van Allen Lubin was a transfer from UNC to NC State. Matt Abel is going in the opposite direction and will play for the Tar Heels. Carolina also got an NBA prospect named Neo Avdalas, who played last year at Virginia Tech. He's a 6'9" point guard, which you don't hear very often. And they got a Utah scorer named Terrence Brown out of the Big 12. So Carolina also has some work to do. I mean, with Henry Vessar, their big guy, and obviously Caleb Wilson, we knew all along was going to go to the NBA draft early. The Heels kind of have a hole in the middle. So John Shire's in the best position. There's a little bit of wait and see with NC State and UNC, and it's hard to feel good about where Wake Forest is right now.
David, I've been telling people this. I'm excited for the NBA draft for the first time in adulthood, probably, because when I look at mocks, it's like a flashback to 1995 where I literally knew every player in the first round of the draft. There's not a ton of guys I've never heard of. It's all big-time college guys, and for that reason, and the Hornets actually got me a little bit invested into the NBA as well. So for that reason, I'm excited. It's just great to see a list with recognizable names, and I think the NIL has a lot to do with that. Guys are, sticking around. Overseas guys are coming to play college, right? So we get to know them a little bit before they go in the NBA.
Yeah, there's a few forces at work there, and one is what you just said. International guys would not usually come to the United States if money was on their mind. I mean, for as long as we've been around, there have been international guys in college basketball, but 9 times out of 10, those were guys who knew they wanted to blend the American university system with the American college basketball system. And most of the time, they'd actually travel and relocate to an American high school to finish their high school career so that they could be recruited into college basketball. It's totally different now. I mean, Virginia's star forward was a 23-year-old from Belgium who had been playing pro basketball for 4 or 5 years. I mean, 23-year-old freshman, that is all about revenue sharing, which we're only 1 year into, and name, image, likeness, which we're only 5 years into. So the way that the other way it impacts is many guys who otherwise would have turned pro are staying. And when you hear old guys like Rick Pitino, who have been at this, for literally 50 plus years, when you hear them say that the caliber of competition and just the level of play in major men's college basketball is as high as he's ever seen it, part of it is that international influence that's expanded. And part of it is, unless you're going to be a mid to high first round draft pick, you can often make more money staying in college. I mean, if you're a second round pick or below, it's almost a no-brainer you're going to make more money in college. Henry Vessar had an interesting decision to make. The Carolina center could have made $5 or $6 million if he had stayed in college for his senior year. I don't think his salary will be that in the first. I mean, who knows what he gets in, supplemental income at the NBA level, but his pure NBA salary could be half of what he would have made if he stayed in college. And that's just where we are right now. But it does allow us to get to know some names longer so that maybe you and many others on draft day have more familiarity with guys who have spent more time, maybe not with only one school, but more overall time in college basketball.
Another great example of the flip too, David, is hey, Hey, I'm excited to see another year of Brandon Miller and man, Kalkbrenner. He's going to grow,
Yeah.
and who knows, James and those guys. I'm saying that for the pro team. For my college team, well, everybody's gone. It's a whole new team. Now the pros is where the guys stay, and in college it's a different roster every year. It is totally flipped. So
That is fascinating. I mean, you can watch the Hornets nucleus grow up a little bit, for example. It's not quite like the old watch them play for 4 or 5 years in college,
yep.
the way it was for most of our lifetimes. But it's you better be able to microwave a basketball team nowadays. I think Brad Brownell at Clemson has 6 or 7 returnees, and that is just a gargantuan number in today's landscape.
Unheard of.
So many have 0, 1, 2, or 3 that, I mean, you're truly introducing guys to each other over the summer to get ready for preseason practice.
DG, always enjoy it, man. We hit on a lot of stuff today. What else you got cooking up at NC Sports Network?
A lot of recruiting stuff, a lot of NFL draft stuff, a little Canes stuff. We'll get to the NBA draft when that rolls around. The NFL free agents, it's always fun to track the guys we've watched in college. If you're not picked in that 7-round draft, being invited to a mini camp is not that big of a deal. But if you get a contract as an undrafted free agent, that is a pretty big deal. So, we end up rooting for those guys to just latch on to an NFL roster and live their lifelong dream. But a little bit of all of those things going on at the website right now, ncsportsnetwork.com.
David, always enjoy it, man. I really enjoyed the chat. We'll do it again down the road. Appreciate you, man.
Great to be with you, Clip. Take care, bud.